and welcome to another episode of Magicians Only. Are you a magician? Doesn't matter if you're a magician or not. As long as you like magic, you're welcome. You just got to promise to keep all the secrets to yourself and not be like those little jerks online giving it all away for free. Can you imagine they buy those tricks and then they give away the secrets? There's even one guy who actually sells a trick online and he shows online how it's done. It's the dumbest thing in the world. Anyway, you're very, very welcome, everybody. Welcome to Magicians Only. Remember, Magicians Only is sponsored by Magic on the Go, which is my little project with almost 1,000 videos. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that later because we have some really cool stuff coming up. Today's guest is a professional magician. This is what he does. This is what he does. It's what he's done for years. This is how he makes his living. And he has incredible stories. He's had incredible clients. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Eric Bedard.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Steve.
Hello, and welcome, sir. Thanks for doing this. I know that you're busy and flying everywhere and jumping on, yachts and stuff. So this is great. I think one of the reasons that I love having you on the show, and I want everyone to see, is that, and even those people out there who aren't magicians, is that, you can, this is a real career. This isn't something like little Johnny who's got a couple of tricks in his pocket. This has been, I know I made a career for many years before the acting took off, doing the magic. And how long have you been doing magic now?
Over 40 years, full-time.
Full-time for 40 years. And that's all you've done. It's like when my parents go, do you have a job? Do you have another job to fall back on? It's like, no.
Yeah. What's your day job?
Yeah. My day job is watching other magicians and learning new tricks. Because now, is it right that you were trained by your dad? Is that right?
Yes, I started, my dad was a magician. So when I was 7, it was the first time I hit the stage. I was his assistant, little tuxedo, carried out the props.
300 ladies doing a show at 14. You must have been like the cutest thing. They must have just thought you were adorable, right?
Absolutely. And I had to, when the show was over, after 20 some minutes, I had to pause and say, now I'm going to do a little bit of walk around magic. And I had a couple of packet tricks, and because my stage show was all done, I'd used everything. So.
Yeah. You don't realize until you get in front of an audience that first time and you don't know how long this stuff's going to go. And then 5 minutes. Yeah. Even now, if I go on stage and I did a show in Saudi Arabia once and I went out and I did 2 jokes to begin and not one laugh. And I was like, okay, I'll just stick to the magic. And, that show was a lot quicker. It was a lot quicker without the gags. When you did the walk around, when you say a couple of packet tricks, this must have been like in the days of Emerson and West, right? All those great packet tricks that they were selling.
Yes. My father had a bunch of, I think they were Fox Lake cards and little packet tricks. There was a wild card, but I didn't do that one. But I forget. Marked and marked again was one of the tricks.
Sure. Where
you, the cards turn over one at a time, and then you show they all have red backs with numbers on them or something.
Yeah. How was that, Ashley, just off the top of my head here, how was that working with learning from your dad? Because my son, he's 9 and he's always like, are you going to, he just kind of wants to know how it's done. He doesn't really have the interest in learning to perform it from what I can see, although he comes up with his own bits. But how was that experience? It must have been very bonding.
Oh, it was. It was great. My father actually had me stand with one card in front of a mirror. And I forget, he bribed me. I forget what the payoff was. But he said, when I could hold a card and palm it front and back in the mirror and not see the card myself.
Yeah.
And again, I forget what the payoff was, if it was an evening out or I don't remember. But I spent many hours in front of that mirror with one card, and I never got into manipulation. It didn't interest me then. It doesn't interest me now, but it was something I did. But you can
sure as hell do this, right? You can do. It's funny,
exactly.
One of my earlier memories was back palm too. Maybe it was something in the ether. I had an uncle, and Uncle David, who, remember, every time we'd go over to see him, he'd have a couple of tricks. He had the piece of rope with the ring on it that was knotted, that you had to get the ring off, and it was more of a puzzle. And he'd always do this thing where he'd vanish a card and he would say, point somewhere, and he would pull the card out from that place, you see, as opposed to just producing it. And I had no idea what he was doing. And I just bugged him so much. And finally he said, I'm going to give you the book. I'm not going to tell you where it is. He said, but if you can find it, you can learn it. and I want to see you do it, and I'll give you some more stuff. So he gives me Royal Road to Card Magic, which, as
Oh
I'm
my
sure you know,
goodness.
that move isn't in the
Yes.
book. So I read that book back to front. Like I was like, am I missing something here? And that book is
Yes.
very few pictures and all prose, right? So but it got me hooked. But that son
Yes.
of a bitch, man, he never
Yeah.
taught me that bloody thing. I had to go to an old Walter Gibson book or something. I forget,
That's fantastic.
but what a way to learn. That's got
It's,
to be an amazing experience. So then when you were 7, so do you remember at 7 this being something you really wanted to do, or was it just something fun to do with your dad? Did it hook you in a way?
yeah, it did. It was I mean, I got a lot of applause because I was cute. And just walking out there
You
with
still do. You still do, Eric. Come on. You walk out,
that's where I get most of my applause.
those
Steve.
ladies are in their 90s now, but they love you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A little bit older. But yeah, just going out and having people come up after and say what a great job they did. And getting the feeling or watching them smile and feeling that, oh, I actually brought them a little bit of joy tonight doing this, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't for the praise or the accolades. It was what I saw in them that got me hooked and still motivates me today.
I think that's one of the purest motivations for performing magic is that little glint of wonder in the spectator's
Absolutely.
eyes, especially when, I don't know if you're guilty of this. I'm guilty of looking at an audience before a show and kind of judging them, and I'll see some like tough guys out there and I'll be like, oh, they're going to be bad, or some woman who's sitting there all kind of sour faced. And then at the end of the show, they're the ones that come up to you and they're like, man, you made me feel like a kid again. You know, I've had that so many times, and it always touches me. There was a lady at one show who said that she didn't like magic, but her daughter dragged her to the show and she had a great time. And I was like, well, that's even better, isn't it? So at 7, you're learning magic, and I assume you're doing like kids parties to make a little extra money and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
And then
when did you go full pro though? When was the big leap?
Oh, actually, I I was doing magic, and then when I turned about 18 or 19, took off with a rock band across Canada, and I was the light man and the roadie, but I would introduce them with a fire to silk and a silk to cane. I did a little bit of flashy magic and then introduced the band, and
Amazing.
would do magic at after parties and stuff like that. Then I got into sales. I got a steady job in sales and motivational speaking type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the 1980s, I went to my wife one day and I said, I want to be a magician when I grow up. I said, I'm going to take a year off work. I had saved some money.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a year off work. I'll practice a minimum of 8 hours a day. And I guarantee you 2 things. 1, I'll take you around the world. And 2, I'll make $100,000 a year doing magic.
Wow. That's a commitment. Well, just like marriage, that's a commitment.
Yeah. And that was in the 80s. I'm a good salesman because she bought it.
And then you went to your second wife and she said, no, I'm kidding. That's amazing. And so she said, I mean, that's amazing. What an amazing relationship that she believed in you.
And then 4 months after that day, I got my first steady gig in a restaurant, working the Sunday buffet, which led to me working at that place Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, 4 nights a week in Victoria. And then it just kind of took off.
For the people who are just getting into magic right now, what was that process that you went through to get that first restaurant, to get that first gig? I mean, you must have been working on the material, right? And then
yes.
Then what?
Well, I got to tell you, Steve, I used the same formula a year ago in May, because I'm traveling less these days.
Yep.
And I decided, we live in Windsor, Ontario now, across from Detroit.
Yep.
And I thought about it for a couple months, and I decided I want to get a restaurant gig where I can go one night a week and play, practice my chops, create new routines. And the first thing I did, I scouted out a bunch of restaurants. The very first one I went to is where I work now, Harborside Waterfront Eatery.
Yep.
I asked for an interview with the manager. And went in and I sat down and said, how much does each person bring you that walks in the door? I said, when my wife and I come here, I spend $80 to $100. So is every person worth about $50 or so? And he said, no, I think it was $43.
Okay.
And I said, so if I were to bring 10 people in, That would cover my wage starting out as a restaurant magician. And then I went on to do a couple of magic tricks. I think one of my strongest points is that I'm really good at creating magic to promote a company, a slogan. I did a lot of trade shows.
Right.
I still do some corporate work for companies, and I study them. I learn their mission statement, their slogans, their logos, their websites, and I create routines that promote that. So, one of them is an Omni deck. You know, you're familiar with the Omni
Sure.
deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
For the audiences who are listening who don't know what an Omni deck is, a deck of cards that, well, you use a regular deck of cards, you're using it for a bunch of tricks, and suddenly, usually while someone's holding it, it becomes a clear block of glass. It's a pretty amazing trick. Okay, go ahead.
So I go through decks of blank backed cards.
Sure.
So I print out, oh, I probably have one here. Oh, but I print out the logo. Here's one of them. So when they look at the end and they're holding the block of the deck of cards, and I say, when you take, I'm going to make the deck disappear. When you take a look in just a moment, it'll not only be clear to you the deck is gone. It'll be clear to you where's the best place on Sunday nights for good food, good service, and good magic. And when they open their hands, there's a solid block. And I say, Harbor House Restaurant, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if I'm working, I have a whole bunch of them here. I have 2 decks of cards with company logos. I print these off and I put them underneath there. And at a corporate gig, I always make sure I go see the CEO, the CFO, and the person who's hiring me. And I do that with their company. The other thing I do, and I have one right here, I have several of these. You might not be able to see this, but this one is printed, engraved.
Oh, yeah. It's engraved
the
with
David Foster Foundation logo. It's an Omni deck, and my good friend Sean Farquhar, Palmer Magic, will engrave a deck for you, and I think it's about $50 or something. So many times I will get the company's logo engraved on the Omni deck.
Amazing.
And I leave that. I leave that with the CEO or the CFO or the owner of the company and tell them to keep it on their desk and tell people what happened when they come into their office. So
that's fantastic. But this goes back to your days in marketing and
absolutely
and public speaking and stuff like that. This is how you know that it's more than the magic. It's like it's not kissing up to, but it's you're there for the company.
Exactly.
Because I see some magicians who do trade shows and they'll throw in the name of the company at the end of the routine, or they'll say like, and just like the plumbing clears like magic, just like the plumbing supplies or whatever. But you really go the extra mile.
Absolutely.
Do you ever do anything where you remember that trick? I wish I could find. There was a trick with a pencil that had a string on the end of it, a little loop.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? And then you could just walk up to someone and you could put it in their buttonhole, and it was like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And they used to make them so that you could get company names put on them.
Right.
But you can't find those pencils anywhere. They must have been a time when they were available.
Yes.
I imagine we could find them in China somewhere. But
yeah, I remember those from 35 years ago or so. I did a lot of trade shows back in the day.
Yeah. So trade shows, which is okay. We'll get to trade shows in a minute because that's something we haven't really talked about on this podcast. Sure. But I'm just fascinated with this idea that you had such a passion for magic, and you just wanted that change in your life. And
yes,
and you said, but you had a plan. You planned it. You made the schedule. You're like, okay, here's my goal. Sure. This is all motivational speaking, right? You manifested it. You wrote it out. You said a year from now it's going to be this amount of money. It's going to be. I'm going to be working. I'm going to take you around the world, which you have done, right? You've taken your wife everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My wife and I have rode camels by the Great Pyramids of Giza. We've swam in the Dead Sea. We've been all around the world.
On magic. This is what's great. On magic. And this
card tricks.
Man, around the world on a deck with a deck of cards. I feel like that's the title of a biography. It's maybe your biography when you decide to spill the beans.
And I say to my wife often, we'll be in Greece and we're laying on a beach. And I look over and I say, "You okay, dear?" She said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I say, "Card tricks, honey, card tricks." And I have said that so many
I
times.
don't want to see those eyes roll. When I ask
Yeah,
you to pick a card, you pick a damn card.
you
When I practice a trick on you, you act like you like it. So, and this is so good for people to hear, right? Is like, just because you do one thing for a living doesn't mean you have to be stuck doing that your entire life. There's something
absolutely
passionate that you love, do it, go for it, but make the plan.
right.
Don't expect, it's like the old joke, you got to buy a ticket, you got to buy a lottery ticket, you got to actually make the plan.
Yes,
And so you said to yourself, right, I need to go to a restaurant. That means I need this amount of material. Boom, 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 boom.
right.
It means I need to go to the top guy in charge. I need to make it out like financially it's going to be a win-win for him. Normally I
Right.
get, do you say things like, well, normally I get paid this, but for you, I'll do it for this? How do you,
That's
how do you
exactly
couch
what
it?
I
So
did.
how do you say it exactly?
I laid out a plan, and I don't mind talking numbers.
Okay. That'd be great for people
When
to
I,
understand.
yeah, when I went to this particular restaurant gig a month ago, I mean, it's less than 10% of what I get for many of my corporate gigs.
Sure.
But I wanted a place to go play once a week, keep the chops sharp. I have two great magicians in Detroit that come over and fill in for me when I'm on other gigs.
Right.
But I went to him and said, the owner, I said, normally a restaurant magician would get $150 for the first hour, $125 for each additional hour. So that's $400 for a 2.5 to 3 hour set. I said, I will start at $250 for a couple months. We'll see how it goes. And I've had a couple of raises since then. I'm at that fee. I usually pick up $60 to $100 in tips as well. So it's a $500 night.
Yep.
It pays for when I decide I want to buy Firefly or the harmonica, or I want to buy these. These aren't
This
even
is
open
your,
yet.
so it's your
I've got about
magic
8 of
fund.
them
So this
around.
is how, so this is your magic fund essentially, right? This is the
Exactly.
new trick fund. It's your experimentation fund. Do you find do people tip okay, or do you have to use techniques to get them to understand they do tip? Or
I don't. No, I absolutely don't use technique at all of any kind. However, I uh, I go to a great deal to personalize things. As you know,
yes, this is great.
I do a newspaper headline, and I will find out. So I have these blocks of newspapers that I have. So I call the restaurant at 2 o'clock or so on the Sunday, and I go over the reservation list with the hostess. And
Amazing.
she says, Steve Valentine's coming in. He's got a reservation for a group of 10 people, and it's his mother, Shirley's birthday, and she's 75. So I write a headline: Eric Bedard fails to find Shirley Valentine's, Shirley, be the seven of spades. Seven of spades while she celebrates her 75th birthday at Harbor House Waterfront Eatery on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Now, she doesn't even know I know her name. And I go to the table, I do a few tricks, and I close usually with a multiple selection of some type.
Yeah.
And I get her to shuffle the cards without knowing her name. And while I'm doing it, and at the end, I can't find her card. I asked her if she read the newspaper. I pull out the newspaper, I show her the prediction, and then I give it to her.
That
So-
I can attest to the power of this, because
Yeah.
I'd heard that you did this trick, but
Yes.
still when you did it on me,
Yes.
it had an incredible impact. Can you show the
Sure.
newspaper again to the camera just so that everyone can
Yes.
see? So you got a bunch of these and it's on newsprint. And
Marie Hatfield sells these.
Daily Bugle. Love that.
It's a Daily Bugle. It's 2 pages, and I have a way of sticking this to a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, with Post-it notes, and I have a template, and I can just go in and I can print them out. And sometimes, I do this at corporate gigs as well if they want me to.
Sure.
My record is one night I made 12 of them at a walk around where there was about 400 people, and I got 9 of them out.
Wow.
And I make a cheat card with one of those blank cards I print out. I always use the number of letters in the first person's name and the closest of the last name to this club's heart, spades, and diamonds. So you would be the 7 of spades. Steve, Steve, or 5 of spades.
5 of spades. Oh, I see. Okay.
And then I list them on a little piece of paper. I print them on the back of a playing card, and I put them in my breast pocket. When I have lots of them, I have 3 on the inside, 3 on the inside here, 3 in my right back pocket, 3 in my left back pocket. If I do that many, that's kind of rare.
I know that there's a lot of magicians listening to this thinking that's a lot of work, and that is a lot of work. But that's why literally you get paid the big bucks, because I know we'll get to your private party career in a minute. But I think what I'm getting here is you have a passion for marketing, and that has caused you. How old were you when you got into magic to go professional?
Full time, I was in my 30s.
In your 30s.
Yeah, mid 30s.
Mid 30s. So like I feel like you've leapt leaps and bounds over other magicians trying to get work just because of your understanding of marketing and your understanding of going the extra mile and taking.
Absolutely.
And there's so much to learn here. This is great.
You know, Stephen, I carry, I go through decks of these blank. So you can buy decks of cards that are blank on the back and they have a face. And I carry these 4 or 5 with me every time I'm working. Because somebody will come up to me at some point, or may come up and say, "Oh, can you do something for Steve over there? It's his birthday today."
Sure.
So I go and I write on there, "Happy birthday." I say, "How old is he?" "He's 58. Happy 58th birthday, Steve." And I put this card in my pocket. Now I have them pick the 10 of diamonds from a regular deck, and I do a bit of an ambitious card. Then it jumps to my pocket. I get them to sign it, and then I carry on with a regular card, so I keep showing the card this way, and then at the very end I can say, "Do you know why you chose this card?" Because there are people in the know who would say that we are all drawn subconsciously to choose a certain card, and you chose this card for a very special reason. Is today a special day for you? And the person says, "Yes, it's my birthday." And I say, "Oh, that's why. This is a birthday card." And they say, "How do you know that?" And I say, "Well, it's obvious. On the back, it says, 'Happy 58th birthday, Steve.'" And I hand it to them, and they've signed the face.
It's the detail, and not just of the name, but of the age. Because I would be tempted just to have a bunch of names, but no other detail, right? Like just so if you find something out, you got it in an index or something. But that extra, this is really good stuff. And thank you so much for tipping this, because I think what you're showing us is that the work that you do, and the magic is strong, but you always go that extra mile to connect with the audience. So you're not just marketing to the client, right? You're marketing to the audience at the same time. The newspaper bit is amazing. So what do you do when you travel? I assume you have a little traveling printer, or you print them out before you go?
I have a small HP printer that's about this big and it's thick. When I worked on cruise ships, and back in the day when I worked on cruise ships, I retired from the ships in 2009. But back then I would do 3 and 4 month contracts. And at the first port, I would buy a printer and have it in my cabin. And just before I was ready to go, I would sell it to one of the crew at a little bit of a reduction.
Nice.
And I always sold them right away. They were always, "Oh yeah, I need a printer." But now I have a small one that prints. Plus I've learned with the Post-it method, I can print on any printer at any business center. I can walk in with a list of names.
So you just put Post-its around the frame of the picture onto a piece of paper, and you lock it into place?
Yeah, so I tear a thin strip off the Post-it.
Right.
Because I've tried painter's tape. It tears the paper.
Yeah.
I've tried all kinds of tape. The top of a Post-it note. And in my drawer here where the newspapers are, I have probably 7 or 8 little Post-it pads.
Amazing.
Because if you take one of these and tear it this way, that makes a great little sticky paper, but it doesn't tear the newspaper off when you peel it off.
Have you tried those tabs that they use, sign here, those tabs that you can get?
I'm not sure.
They're these little tabs with arrows on them, and they put them on paper documents so you know where to sign, and you peel them up. They still might be a little too strong.
And these, you can get a block of them at Staples or somewhere for...
I know, right? It's so cheap. And I love the fact that the Post-it note was an absolute failure for the 3M. They were did you know that? They were trying to find the strongest glue.
Oh,
and it
really?
failed miserably. And then one guy was like, wait a minute, I think I have an idea for this.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that man's failure has become your success, which is just another.
And then one small tip is you can't use Post-it notes from the dollar store. The ones that are made overseas that are really cheap,
Yeah,
they're not strong enough to hold the paper. It'll slip and slide and jam up in your printer.
that's a good. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I do a tournament store tissue, and I realized that there are definite quality levels of quality when it comes to tissue, and it can, even just when you crinkle it, it can break apart if you get it from the dollar store. So you go to the restaurant, you've got your plan, you mark it to this guy, he bites, the first guy at the house, and now you've been doing. And so how long were you doing that? And obviously you're giving out business cards at every table.
Absolutely.
Did you have a special trick for giving out the business cards, or did you just go, here's my cards? What was it?
My business cards on the back have a Facebook QR code and my Instagram.
Yep.
So usually it's many times I get asked for a card, but if I don't, and if people are really enjoying the magic, I say, by the way, I'll leave you my card. And if you really enjoyed the magic and you want to go make a post either on Instagram or on Facebook, this is how I market myself. I'd appreciate that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing is my business cards have my picture on them because I learned in marketing years ago that people will throw away a business card, but 80%, or I forget what the percentage is, most of them will keep something that has a picture on it because they feel it's like a photograph. And your business card should only say three things: who you are, what you do, and how to contact you. So this one says Eric Bedard, magician to the stars, because I picked up that moniker.
Yeah.
And then it's got a phone, an email, and a website. That's it. And these are the old ones. They had just the QR code to the Facebook. The new ones have Instagram as well.
I think that's a great tip for everybody to use their photograph. Also, it helps people remember who the hell you are. I mean, not exactly. You don't know how many magicians people are bumping into, but that will then trigger a memory, hopefully a good one, and so they'll look at the card with a good feeling. That's great. And then, that's great advice.
One more memory maker is Anniversary Waltz.
Right. Let me just tell. Okay, so for those who don't know, Anniversary Waltz is 2 cards are chosen. They're both signed, and then the magician fuses them into one card with both signatures on it. And it's a great trick for couples and for romantic partners. And so, do you do the original Doc Eason version, or are you?
No. And Doc Eason, as a matter of fact, at one point said that I had the best Anniversary Waltz he'd ever seen.
All right. That's
when he
praise
was on
indeed.
Tour doing a lecture.
Yeah.
And just my handling, and Doc's handling the card comes away from the deck. And in mine, it never does, either card. And more importantly, I do Anniversary Waltz for so many people. Like last weekend or a couple of weeks ago was Mother's Day.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, yeah, of course.
My intro to that is, they say there's no greater bond on the planet than that of mother and son, or daughter and son. I did it this past Sunday for 2 sisters. They say there's no greater bond on the planet than that of 2 sisters.
Yes.
Who are not only friends. I do it with coworkers. Do you want to hear a tearjerker story of when I did it?
Tell me something that happened. Yeah.
We were at the, as you know, you work for David Foster, and I do a lot of shows. I'm booked now for my 30th show with David Foster.
That's amazing.
Well, that's the big one next August, but there's another smaller one this year. But we are at a fundraiser for the David Foster Foundation. The foundation helps families whose children need a life-saving organ transplant. So the hospital bills are covered by medical plans. The Foster Foundation pays for so the parents can go spend a year in the hospital with the kids. They replace the wages, they pay the mortgage, the car payments, the insurance, the house. They pay everything.
Beautiful.
So the parents can be with the child. I'm in a room, and this is a gala fundraiser, $1,000 a person. There's 100 people out there. That's for the VIP section, and then there's 3,000 or 4,000 people coming in after the VIP. And I'm in a room backstage, and there's a young girl. Her name was Sophia. She's 6 years old. She's with her mother. and she had received a heart transplant. And beside, I forget the mother's name, but beside the mother is the mother of the daughter who died in a car accident when she was 6 years old.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
mother donated the heart to this little girl, not knowingly, but donated the girl's organs. So I'm in there entertaining. There's about 15 people. And I decide to do anniversary waltz. And I barely made it through. There was not a dry eye in that room because I did it as a demonstration that the two mothers had now formed through their daughters an inseparable bond that would outlast the sands of time. And when I had the two mothers each holding their hands with that card, the two signed cards in their hands, tears were rolling down my nose onto the back of the mother's hand. And little voice was saying, keep it together, Eric, you can do this, you can do this. And when they opened their hands and I held up that card and I said, just as your lives have fused together through your daughters, so have your cards fused together as a reminder. And I handed it to the one mother. The mother whose daughter had died stood up, gave me a hug, and cried for a minute on my shoulder, and then stood back and looked at me and said, that's one of the most touching and beautiful experiences of my life. Then the other mother stood up and hugged me and cried, and she had the card. She turned and gave it to the first mother and said, I got goosebumps again. You keep this, and handed it to her. Now both mothers and I are hugging each other. We're crying. The little girl's hugging my leg.
Oh my God.
Oh my
I'm like,
goodness. Yeah, I know.
I'm crying.
Every time I tell that
I know.
story,
Look at this. Bunch of old guys
couple of
crying.
old softies.
That's good. I mean, that's just beautiful.
It was a rare opportunity, to touch people that way.
And it's so powerful because magic kind of like cuts through so many walls, it cuts through so many layers, and you just get right to the heart of people because they don't expect it. So that's a beautiful story. You see, this is the power of magic. And, some people look at magic as being just like silly little tricks, but it really can affect people. I've had similar experiences in children's hospitals. They're a tough thing to go to. Because you walk in those rooms and you go to entertain the kids and you got to keep it together. You don't want to be, it's every time I've done a kids hospital, I come back, I look at my kids and, but the grace of God, it's a super powerful reminder that we're all so temporary here. But I love that we have this ability. I remember getting asked, there was a little girl who used to come to the taping of I'm in the Band. She would come in a little wheelchair and she wasn't well, but she would come every week to the taping. She loved the show. And then her mother reached out via the studio and said, is there any way that she's in the hospital, is there any way that I could come visit? Wow. And so, of course you go. And so I went and the mom said, look, she's having trouble. She's quite weak and she's got to have a surgery. We're not sure she's going to make it out of the surgery. And she asked if she could speak to you. So I'm like, of course. So I just go in there and I'll never forget, like she as soon as she saw me walk in the room, she smiled. And later on, her mum told me when we left, that was the first time that she'd smiled in days, which was beautiful. And then we sat and we talked about the show. We talked about acting. We talked about, and then magic. And then I did a whole bunch of magic for her. And, and you're looking at these kids and they have tubes going in and out of their bodies and they should not be in a hospital. And you just, you do your best, and then she got really weak. And so I left. And then a couple of days later, her mum called me and said that she'd gone through the operation. And she said, it was interesting. She said, she was really despondent. She said, but once you visited, she was like, had a new lease. She was like full of energy, and she was telling the nurses, "Do you know who came to visit me?" And she made it through the surgery, and she's quite healthy today. I'm so happy to say.
Fantastic.
But you sometimes I think about these things about like our journeys in life, and like you wonder if sometimes your whole purpose was that one meeting,
yes,
to help that little girl. What was that the meeting, and to help those parents, to help them get through a tough time. We don't know, but we. Because we're so transient, we cross paths with so many people. We are connectors in a way. Thank you for sharing that story. That's beautiful.
You're welcome.
To go back to so the idea that what I love here is that the magic that you do is always marketing to people, to real people, to make that personal connection, to go further than
Absolutely.
just doing magic at someone, which I think is,
Exactly.
yeah.
I know I follow the same line as you in that I never do magic in look what I can do or I can fool you. It's always look how much fun this is. Watch this. I saw you do your show at Michigan Magic Day,
Yes.
and you were having so much fun up there.
Yes.
And I was giggling. It's one of the best shows I've seen in the last 40 years.
Oh,
It was
thank
just
you. Thank you.
so fantastic. Your music to go across the stage, the way you made the people feel, everything about it. When I worked cruise ships, one of the best compliments I ever got was I did almost a decade for Princess Cruises. And there was a couple one night after the show, and they were waiting. And on cruise ships, they ask you to go out and stand outside the theater. And this old couple was waiting. And this was about 2005. So I was 55 and they were older. And she come over and she said, young man, she said, I just wanted to let you know how much we enjoyed your show. And I said, thank you. She said, we are platinum cruisers. We now do 10 or 12 cruises a year, and we love magic. We go to every show, and we enjoyed your show the best. And I'm not saying that to brag, but she said, you're having a lot of fun up there, aren't you? And I said, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I said, yes, I am. She said, well, it shows and it's contagious. So keep having fun because we had fun too.
Isn't that great?
She walked away. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's great. I'm not up there to fool anybody. I mean, it works,
Sure.
the magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a side benefit. I'm up there to have fun.
I think that's such an important thing to learn. The idea that the entertainment doesn't just come from what you say, from your patter and the gags you've built in, but also just from the energy that you have on stage, from the idea of like, if you're enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
People,
Exactly.
it is infectious. Energy is infectious. And I think you can win people over that way.
Yeah.
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 Did you find it a hard step going from, so you're doing the restaurants and then you started doing private gigs. Did you find it a hard step to move into the stand-up stuff, or was that always for you the same thing?
No, it's the same way I got on cruise ships. I didn't want to get into box magic, big illusions.
Yeah.
And so I basically just created a whole bunch of routines. I expanded my close-up. So I mean, I've done coins across for 650 people with 2 people on stage where a lady's holding my hand and I have 4 coins in the left hand. The lady on my right is holding the back of my wrist with her left hand, and in her right hand, she has a crystal glass.
Yes.
And the 4 coins from my left hand, all of a sudden there's 3 and 1 falls in the glass. And as you well know, that's a close-up trick. I took it from coins traveling from my left hand to my right hand. I worked out a way that each of the coins, one at a time, could travel into a spectator's hand. And then I just took that and brought it to a stage.
That's fantastic, because you're known for pack small, plays big, right?
Yes.
You did something with Penguin for this, right?
Vortex Magic.
Was it Vortex?
Right.
Okay.
A 2 DVD set years ago.
Pack small, plays big. It's which is really important right now, because every time someone goes to do a cruise ship, they lose a suitcase. It's you fly. In fact, the ships demand in the contracts now that you have a magic with you in your carry-on, so that you've got something to do, because they expect the suitcases to go. So when you're and also I think when you started doing cruise ships, a lot of ships were doing the bigger magic shows, which they're not anymore, right? They want you to be a suitcase magician, to step on and step off. So when you pack your So, by the way, did you know, it's funny when you talk about the coins across, on Magic on the Go, there is a routine that I found of Gali doing coins across. Have you ever, Gali, who was famous for doing the cups and balls with the baby chicks?
Oh, right.
I'd read in a book that he had done coins across, where the coins vanished from one hand and appeared in another. And I'd read that he'd done it in front of like 6,000 or 7,000 people in Las Vegas. And I was marveling. I was like, how on earth did he sell this? You're also talking about 60s, 70s, right? So there's no cameras or anything. And then I found this piece of footage. I studied it, which is good because you can't find it anywhere now. So I learned his routine. I kind of reverse engineered from the performance, and it's really lovely. And it's two spectators. There's 4 coins. They're really just large silver washers.
Right.
2 are wrapped up in a handkerchief and given to somebody to hold, and the other 2 are put in the other person's hand. And what really sells it is he has the spectator drop the coins on the floor at the very end. So hold them up one at a time and drop them on the floor, so they get that long drop. Hits the light,
noise.
and then the sound of the, sound is everything. It's like the chocolate box trick that I do. It's all about the sound.
Yes, that's a beautiful trick.
Thank you. But it was really fun to kind of discover exactly. You can see it, and he's always hitting. The other 2 are wrapped in a handkerchief, but he's always hitting them with his wand, so they're here. You can hear them, they're here, and then over there. So all right. So if people want to learn your routines for Pack Small Play Big, then they can get your Vortex DVD collection.
Yes,
do you have it on as a download?
Yeah, and if it isn't, they can get a hold of me. And this is the little glass that I use. Because,
little candy.
It's opaque, so you can't really see inside it.
Yeah,
but makes a good sound. Oh, so it doesn't make a noise.
Yeah, it's great.
Anyways, when I'm on stage and I'm mic'd, it works quite well.
We can hear it quite well on this side.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And for the last one, when there's 3 coins in there, I put the lid on it. And the girl's holding it, and I still have a coin in my hand, and then it disappears. And then I open the lid, and I have her pour the coins into her hand, and like Gally Gally, I have her drop them in the glass one at a time and count them out loud.
That's great.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What a great way to sell. You've also got the light sparkling off the glass. Yes. So that's pretty because you've got that kind of diamante on the outside there. Paul Daniels used to do, in fact, Matt DeZero and I were talking about how he used to do Capentro, where the version of it, so the glass is on one side of the stage and he's on the other, and he's vanishing the coins and they appear in the glass but on the other side of the stage. Definitely a prop trick, but he had a microphone right next to the glass so that you could hear, so you could really punctuate the coins appearing. We'll have to talk off camera because there is a way you could make that last coin appear in the glass with the lid on so that you could make it vanish, and then you hear a clink, that would be while the spectator's holding it. There's an old method called the coin jar. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it goes back to like the early 1900s where they had a large glass jar and it was empty. And then you took a bunch of coins and vanished them, and they would appear in the jar. And there's a few variations on that, which could be fun.
Wow.
You never know, right? All these ideas. Peter Antonio toured with us on The Illusionists, and he had two 8-minute spots, one with 3 envelopes and another one with 4 pieces of paper. That was the pure. That's mentalism for you, right? That's why everyone does mentalism.
Well, yes.
But that's the perfect example of Pack Small Plays Big. When you what other kind of effects did you find that you could adapt from close up to the stage?
I do a signed card in a bag. That also got released as Punctured, but that routine is about 10 to 12 minutes for me. And basically, I bring out a newspaper, and the person beside me reads some headlines that are in it. And it's all based on a true headline that men use only half a brain to listen in a study done in Harvard University. So I get a couple up there, and I get a lot of byplay about her husband only using half his brain, and between us, we only have 1 full brain. And then in giving her a demonstration, he signs a card, and it goes in the deck, and I wrap the deck with a bunch of rubber bands, and then I put it in a bag, a paper bag, a lunch bag. And then I take out a needle about this long with a long ribbon, and I put it through the bag, and he holds one end and I hold one end, and then we each hold it high above our heads. We're 12 feet apart. And I ask the audience, ladies and gentlemen, do we look like a couple of men using only half our brains? Gets a huge laugh. And then I say, you don't know where your card is. I don't know where your card is. But Susan does, because she's using a full 100% of her mental faculties. She comes up on stage, she grabs the bag, and there's some byplay. I teach him lines to say, And of course, when she pulls it down, the card is impaled on the ribbon. It's his signed card. I take a pair of scissors and I cut it and I put it around his neck so that he'll never lose his card again. So on the ships, it's great. Oftentimes when I go up to the buffet at midnight, because I've done 2 shows, 8:30 and 10:30, there's 2 different people walking around with ribbons with their signed card on it, because that's their badge.
And so they'll never forget their name because they're only using half their brain, right? I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
Isn't it interesting when you do a trick with somebody on a cruise ship like that, you kind of make them the star of the ship. They'll often tell you that everyone's been coming up to me all night long and talking to me about the piece. Yeah, that's great. So you basically, that's like the Milbourne Christopher card in the paper bag, and then you've taken it and you've expanded it out into this staged piece.
Yeah. I came up with that one time because I found a way of taking a shuffle deck and closing it and putting rubber bands around it and putting it behind my back and pulling out any ace asked for. The 4 aces one at a time. And then I just thought, I'll put it inside a paper bag. Yeah. And then I can have somebody hold it on stage. And then it became 1 card, a signed card. And then the needle, which was an eaves trough nail. It's about 14 inches long.
Yep.
That I flattened out and drilled holes and painted it gold. So it looks really nice. And I have lots of ribbon. I still do that effect anytime I do stand-up because it's great. At one time, Martin Lewis, I met him for supper. They double booked us on a ship for a couple of days. And he saw that routine. And I asked him, I said, do you think Lewis Craft would want to market it?
Yeah.
And he said, it's a fantastic routine. He said, I love it. When you put it out, I will buy the first one. But he said, I only market my tricks and my dad's tricks.
Yes.
He doesn't do.
He never did.
But he said, you can use that quote that I love it and I want to buy the first one. So, yeah, it's good. I get 10 or 12 minutes out of it. So
when you market the trick, does it come with the needle?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You found a good supplier for the needles.
Actually, I didn't. It was Vortex Magic that did it.
Sure. Okay.
And it was kind of like the needle through balloon.
Yes.
It was that type of a needle, which you could use that. And then I found because I want to travel with carry-on, sometimes they won't allow that long needle.
Yeah, no.
So I found some wooden knitting needles that are about 9 inches long.
Sure.
Crochet type needles, and they're sharp and they work just as well. And I can carry one of those. Because in my pack small, play big, are you familiar with the in-stand tables? I think you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to get one, but they're a bit pricey, right? These are the ones with the edges. I think Hobson had a couple of them when I was over at his theater.
Yeah. So years ago, I bought 3 of them and 2 brackets with other shelves. I went and did a 3 12-day cruise contract in the Med out of Athens. And none of my stuff arrived. So the first cruise, and my wife was on that cruise, I told the cruise director came to me and said, well, can you do half a show? Because the comedian will tell, we'll do a split bill. I said, I can do half a show with a deck of cards, which I did. And then at the start of the next cruise, after Linda left, I had 12 days, and I went to the cruise director and I said, if you put me on at the end of the cruise, I'll do my full 45, 48-minute show. And it was one of the most fun cruises I've ever had because we were pulling into ports like Sorrento and to Croatia and all these places where nobody spoke English. Yeah. And I was going to flea markets, walking up and down the aisles going, I could use this. And, and I bought a big flip chart. And then I got 3 stands from the orchestra, the music stands, and I bought a sheet of black foam core, and I cut a 8-inch strip and put one on the little lip of the stand with black tape so you couldn't see it. So I had 3 little tables holding props. But Steve, it was the most fun I had in a long time being creative. And then it was after that, when I went home after that cruise, I said, okay, I went and bought the largest carry-on that was allowed on planes.
Yep.
And I went around and everything I had made had to fit in that carry-on. So I had a full 48-minute show. My show was 47 to 48 minutes and a 20-minute welcome aboard or farewell show in that carry-on.
That's amazing.
Because if my clothes didn't show up on the ships, as you know, they have tuxedo rentals and they have all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I was set. I had my carry-on.
I mean, that's such good advice for everybody, especially nowadays. And also with the cost of suitcases, which, they say they're going to reimburse, but often they forget to, as I've noticed. So everything, so you're full 45. So you've got a deck of cards. Well, you're like me. I mean, I can go for hours with a deck of cards. I always used to think Billy O'Connor was amazing because he did vaudeville with a 12-minute card act back in the early 1900s. And I did my card and wallet routine the other day and it went over 16 minutes. And I was like, right, okay, I'm kind of doing the same thing. Actually, now it's even harder to take. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't be able to take that needle on a plane, but actually, if it's in your luggage, they'll confiscate it now going onto the ship, and you have to get a security guard to go down to security to get it just for the show. They're taking rope now in case you tie someone up in the cabin. You're not allowed to bring rope on the. They'll get the cruise director 20 minutes before the show, go down, pick up your rope, your knives, if you do any tricks with knives, which I do, and needles and anything else that they perceive as being potentially dangerous. Actually, Matt was saying they even took his walking cane for the hat table because they said that's a weapon as well. So more and more. So Pax Small Plays Big has been your mantra ever since.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes if I'm flying to New York or somewhere, I just call the magic shop and I say, okay, give me 4 decks of cards, and I have it shipped to the hotel where I'm going to be.
If you want to know more, then we need to track down your videos. Pax Small Plays Big. All right.
Right. And if you can't get that, you can get a hold of me through ericbedard.ca.
You know what? I'll put a link in the show notes. So if you've got anything to sell or anything, they can go directly to you and they can get hold of that.
Sure. And I'll send you a small commission check in the mail.
Send me a check in the mail. 2 things nobody uses anymore.
My age is showing.
It's going to be, check in the mail. Let's talk about kind of when you transitioned from doing the restaurants to doing the high-paid celebrity gigs, because I've done them in Beverly Hills for years in the 90s. So I know that it's a different kind of audience, and they have to be, honestly, let's just be honest about it. Very wealthy people, celebrities, powerful. When you're among power and wealth, there is a way that you have to behave, and there is a way that you need. I mean, I would love to hear your perspective on it, because I've had everything from being told to stand in the corner, shut up and wait till showtime, to being insisting upon that I join everybody for dinner and that I treat everybody normally and the rest of it. So what was the first time that you got hired to do one of these gigs and the impact that had on you?
Sure. I was working on a fine dining paddle wheeler in Victoria, and it was a 3-hour cruise, about $100 a person. So it was a nice clientele. And Mike Ravenhill, who was the CEO of the David Foster Foundation. He was born in Victoria, but had moved to LA. And he was on the ship with his wife. And that night there was a murder mystery going on. I was 4.5 years on that paddle wheeler, and we were doing sometimes 30 to 45 3-hour cruises a month, because on weekends we'd do 3 or 4 or 5 on a Saturday. Right from early morning brunches to lunches to afternoon, maybe a wedding.
What a cool gig.
An evening sunset cruise to a blues cruise at midnight or to the wee hours. And I met Michael on that, and I really impressed him because there was a murder mystery in the front half of the boat. He wasn't interested, so I gave him a half-hour show, and he ended up booking me for a couple shows. And then he booked me for a David Foster Foundation gig that was in Vancouver. And that one had Patti LaBelle, Merv Griffith, Johnny Rivers, Johnny Mathis, and I was hired to work the green room.
Amazing.
And just had an absolute blast, and then worked the after party. And David, still to this day, absolutely loves magic. Then I started doing shows with them, and Michael really liked the fact that I personalized so many things for the David Foster Foundation, for the celebrities. I mean...
you went the extra mile,
Yeah, so, I mean, I did a newspaper headline for Patti LaBelle, and I think it's 2002, because it was the 10th annual. And we're now going on. They've had a couple of them in between, like 2 in a year. We're coming up to the 40th one next year.
Yeah.
And I did a newspaper headline with Patti LaBelle in the green room. And she left. She had about a 14-piece band. and she came back with her band before she was going on stage, and the security guard wouldn't let her in. Said, "I'm very sorry, Miss LaBelle. This is a very small green room, and this is for the headliners only, and there's another green room." And she said, "If you don't let my band in to see the Magic Dude, I'm not going on stage." She became one of my heroes. So he finally had to relent. She said, "I'll go out there and talk to David Foster and Merv Griffin," because they were doing a Merv Griffin type show, "and tell them that you wouldn't let me see the Magic Dude."
Oh my
So they
God.
came in and I blew them away. But you know, the other nice thing, about 1:30 in the morning, after the after party was just winding down, and I heard, "Hey, Magic Dude." And it was Patti LaBelle. She's walking down the hallway and she's got the newspaper. And she says, "You know, this was a really good trick." But she said, "I'm not going to take this back to LA. So how about I autograph it for you and I give it to you?" So she wrote, "To Eric, love Patty, God bless your hands." And she gave it to me. And obviously I still have it.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to
And
ask
then
you if you'd ever made two of them so you could have a celebrity sign one of them, because I know you've done it for so many people. Who is it?
Yes.
You said you walked into an office once and it was on the wall behind them.
Yes.
Who was
one
that?
of my corporate clients.
Yeah. One of your corps.
Yeah, not a celebrity, but yes. And it was, I had no idea, because it was 4 or 5 years later. And I was dropped. That was in the days when we used to bring out promo packs, you know,
Sure.
I had high color brochures. I was dropping one off, and he was in the doorway and he said, "Eric." And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Good. Come on in." He said, are you, to the girl, his associate, he said, "Are you considering him for a party?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Book him. Never mind anybody else. Book him. Come on in, Eric." I had never seen him before in my life. And I went in and sat down and I looked up. So then I saw Eric Bedard fails to find Larry. I forget his last name. Starts with an S anyways. And there's the information. So I was able to sit there and say, "Now, Larry, let me think. We haven't seen each other since it was that party in July in Vermont."
Because it was right on the paper.
Yeah. And he kind of went, "Yes." He said, "As a matter of fact, look." And I went, "Oh, I didn't even see that."
Oh, man. Always once a magician, always a magician.
Yeah.
Never tip where the info comes from.
Yeah.
That's
But you know something, you asked Steve about dealing with celebrities.
Yeah.
And at first I always felt that they were kind of above me, you know, because they're famous. Many of them are very rich, and I'm an entertainer. And it wasn't till I did a function that Olivia Newton-John was at. And I have a picture of that on my website, the first time I performed for her. And I did the anniversary waltz for her and her mom.
Wow.
And it was very emotional for them, because I do that very emotionally. Then I did a newspaper headline for it, but it was on a Princess Patter. You know, a Patter is a magazine, like a 2-page brochure that every person on the ship gets at night, and it tells them everything going on the next day.
Yeah.
Well, I would go, when I was on the cruise ships, I'd go down to the printing press and I would get some that did not have the headlines yet. Because
that's so
they would
smart.
print the headlines that night. So I always had 30 or 40 of them. So even when I was on land gigs, I would have a Princess Patter from when I performed as a headliner on the ship from 2 years ago. So I could say, "Look at the prediction." You know, I could show them the date and everything. And I did that for Olivia Newton-John, and she asked me for my autograph. She said, would you mind autographing this for me?" And I said, "Not at all." So I autographed it, you know, "Olivia, love, keep the magic alive, Eric." And it was that night that I realized, you know, I mean, they are famous and they are really good at what they do, but they can't do what I can do.
No.
And I can bring them joy and wonderment and fun. And for a while, I quit getting my pictures taken with them after, because it was just, I walked into the room, it was like, okay.
You didn't want to be that guy. You didn't want to be the guy going like,
no, exactly. Look, exactly.
Like, yeah, I've only done that with a few people. Christopher Lloyd was one of them when I worked with him on Psych, and I was like, and he was like, who? He didn't know who I was at the time. We were working together, but I was like, Chris, he goes, who? I'm like, I gotta get a trick, I gotta get a shot before you say no. My experience has been, on the whole, it's been amazingly positive. Just that
Yes, absolutely.
the bigger the celebrity, usually the nicer they are. And it's
Oh,
often the people
absolutely.
around them that are the hard ones to deal with, right? So that has been, every now and then you'll come across someone who's just unmanageable, or is usually an insecurity of some kind.
Yes.
But
For the most part.
yeah,
And as entertainers that they are, they want to be entertained.
I think they do.
If they
I think,
start to see, you know,
yeah, I think they do. Sometimes I've had it. I've had, like, one day I'll talk about it on the podcast. The thing that happened that made me quit magic, but which was a whole bunch of celebrities in one room. But you know, it was always a very interesting thing to me. Sonny Bono always used to say, he said, when he and Cher were doing gigs around LA, he would always
yes,
say, like, it was so hard for him because he didn't want to entertain celebrities. He wanted to be a celebrity. That was, you know, so it was a really hard thing. For me, I find that most of the time, as long as you're respectful, and having had a slight brush with fame in this television stuff that I do, I'm
sure.
no way near what these big celebrities are that I've come to know, but just that side of things, I can tell you, for anyone who's out there who gets a job working for a celebrity, or somebody of note, or wealth or power, just treat them like normal people, but don't treat them like they're your best friend. Don't go up to someone
Right.
and go and slap them on the back and go, "Hello, Bob, how you doing?" That's too much, right? You want to be
Absolutely.
respectful. I mean, I met Brad Pitt once. He said, "Hi, my name's Brad." I'm like, "I know who you are. It's okay." I'm like, "What are you like?" Of course I know you, but he was humble enough, nice enough to kind of introduce himself, and that is a beautiful thing. I
Sure.
remember doing magic at, oh God, whose party was it? It was Lawrence Kasdan, great writer and director. Some of my favorite movies, had a big chill party, and a lot of the cast and some of his friends came. I want to say it was Kasdan's house. Barry Sonnenfeld was there, the director.
Oh, wow.
And I remember, because I was a big fan of the Big Chill movie, which is one of my favorite movies. So walking around doing magic for the cast, it was quite something. There was like piles of caviar everywhere. Lawrence was lovely. And then Sonnenfeld, I did this trick that I created, kind of a version of premonition. And he was really pissed off about it. Like, it bugged him, and he followed me everywhere, every time I did it. Or he would say, "Do that trick again for that." And it was one of those ones you could repeat, thank God.
Yes.
But he was kind of my, I remember doing Mick Fleetwood's 50th birthday party, and
Wow.
oh God, what's his name? Dick Clark was there. Everyone in music was there, and Dick Clark was introduced me to people. Have you seen this guy's magic? He's very good. You should see this. I mean, it was lovely, And
Yes.
you sometimes find that people will champion you if you give them space.
Yeah.
But over being over effusive, or asking for stuff, I learned the hard way when I was younger. I was in my mid-20s when I was doing the Kasdan parties, and I thought, I want to break into acting. So I sent him a fruit basket. And in the middle of the fruit basket, I put my VHS acting reel.
Oh, good
And
for
I was
you.
like, I don't know if it ever made it to him, but I never got booked again. So that was, I was like, I'm also an actor, which is like, I'm also an actor. And that's the worst. That was the worst thing I
Yeah,
did. But on the whole, I would say, don't be overly, treat people normally with respect, and
absolutely.
don't ask for things. Don't ask for favors. It's very awkward. Most people, if they're nice celebrities, will offer, like, they'll offer,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I remember
And
meeting Jack Nicholson at a party once at the bar. We were getting drinks. There's a name to drop, right? And
yes, that's a good one.
and we were just having a normal conversation. And there was a moment when I was like, "Holy fuck, I'm talking to Jack Nicholson," in my head, and he could
Yeah.
see it. I think he saw it in my eyes, and then he was like, "Well, see ya," and he was off. And that it was,
Yeah.
yeah. You just never know. You never know what you're
Yeah,
going to come across.
absolutely.
David Foster, as you know, I'd worked with David a little bit because David was friends with Jay Graydon, who I knew very
Yeah.
well, who's another muso and music producer, and was one of the writers on After the Love Is Gone. So I met David that way. I remember doing a gig for him on a beach. Now, see, that's interesting because as magicians, we don't know sometimes the conditions that we're going to be performing in. That was
Absolutely.
on a beach in the sweltering sun in a tent. And then when they decided to move it out onto the sand, it was super windy. I mean, that was a hard gig. Cards sticking to
Wow.
my fingers, sand everywhere,
Yep.
the cards bending from the humidity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sticking together.
yeah, you've just got to.
Yeah.
I just recently discovered plastic playing cards because I have a card in my sleeve as a gag, and I pull it out at one point in my show. But it was so hot on the cruise ship that by the time I pulled the card out, it was just stained and falling apart. It was so wet,
Mushy.
It was a mushy card. So I thought, I'll use the plastic ones. This is not a bad idea. So you went from doing restaurants to doing these massive celebrity gigs.
Yes.
Patti LaBelle, what do you think so far has been your crowning moment as a magician, other than achieving everything that was on your manifest that you presented to your wife that day?
I think one of the things is I still, like you, I get all excited before I go to my restaurant gig. I get all excited before I pack to go on a plane somewhere, even if it's private.
Yeah.
I can't believe I get to do this, It's
I think the rest of the world can't believe that we get to do this either, but
I know,
they don't believe it's a real gig. It's a real gig,
I know.
people.
It still is.
It still is.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I'm grateful every day.
How do you stay? So my final question is, what advice would you give to aspiring magicians? And I know that you're part of a number of magic organizations in your area and in Michigan. And so you've seen the young magicians that are coming up right now and kind of how they're approaching magic in their way. What advice would you give aspiring magicians who want to enter the magic scene these days?
I think I would say learn some of the classics.
Yep.
If you want to get into a sleight of hand, learn a cup and ball routine, learn some basic card sleights, and try to stay away from all the new fandangle stuff. I mean, I get emails, as you probably do. I get emails every day from Vanishing Ink, Penguin, Illusionist, N2G, all these sites and everything. A lot of magicians, the young magicians now, they think if they buy the latest trick, it's going to make them a star. And then, people like you and I, like you said, you can do a couple hours with a deck of cards, and so can I.
Yeah.
That's entertaining. It's fun. I think that would be it. Learn the classics, practice. I mean, I was fortunate in my formative years to be doing 35, 40 of those fine dining cruises where I got to work 10 or 12 tables every single night, 40 times. All of a sudden, if you get an idea for a routine, I could go out and do it 400 times in a month. So at the end of a year, and something else I do, if I want to learn a sleight, well, I won't have to show you, but here's a real quick practice trick for a new person.
Okay.
Let's say you want to learn something like a strike. I do it once, I turn the deck end for end, I do it a second time, and I put that card on the bottom face up.
Okay.
And then I sit there and I do it again. I turn the deck, I do it again, I put that card right side up. And at one point, I get back to this card. I've now done it 104 times. And I do that 5 times through at one sitting. So I've done it 520 times in one sitting.
Do you find that that's great advice? Do you find that you sit down specifically for rehearsal sessions, or you prefer to do it like, okay, for example, I've been working on the ring on stick. So this ring and this stick is with me just on the couch next to the bed. It's like, I'll just pick it up. I'll go to the kitchen. I'll be there. I'll pick it up. I'll do the moves a couple of times. Something new will pop up. The thing I just showed you that popped up yesterday, and I get to actually try it out. But that wouldn't happen if I wasn't fiddling with it, if I wasn't finessing it, if I wasn't thinking, how can I pull that ring off and make it look natural and make it look real? Because I just find it's when you're not for me, maybe it's an ADHD thing, but maybe is that if I sit down to rehearse, I won't be as creative as if I'm just kind of hanging out with a prop.
I do both. By doing this method in 1 month, I've done it 15,000 times. However, after doing it a couple of times, I now teach an invisible person beside me. So I do it and I go, oh, you didn't get it there. So what you're going to have to do is bevel the cards a little bit.
Right.
If you bevel the cards a wee bit, you will get exactly 2 cards. So try that again. Try it slow. There's a saying in martial arts. I studied martial arts for many, many years. And it's don't sacrifice technique to gain sloppy speed. And that's what happens. People want to learn a pass. They try, I got to do it real fast.
Right.
Instead of, wait a minute, there's so many moves, rock the hands, lift it up, riffle gently,
Yes. Look up with the eyes. Well,
look up,
it's not
exactly,
just
do
the
all
hand.
those things,
Yeah.
and you'll get it. And the other thing is, I have cards in my hand probably 8 or 10 hours a day. Now, I'm not sitting there practicing, but if I'm just sitting around, if I'm walking,
Yeah.
if I'm driving the car, I have cards.
Yeah.
If I get out and I go into the bank, they're in my pocket. If I'm in line, I take them out and I play with them for a minute. And every now and then, like you just said, I go, oh, that's a great idea.
Right.
Why didn't I think of that before?
I was in traffic in LA and I had a bunch of dummy cards on the side of the car, in the pocket on the side of the car. And I was trying to I was practicing a one-handed card fold. So where you just take the card and you fold it into a little packet, and very quickly, the one right out of Expert Card Technique. And I was like, there has to be a quicker, faster way. And an hour later, by the time I got to the castle, and there were all these cards on the floor of my car, I could only use one hand because I was one hand on the steering wheel. I came up with the routine and I called it gridlock because that's the name of the move. And it's on Magic on the Go. But it's a super fast way of like folding a card instantly, almost instantly. And and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't just had those cards and just started playing. And, I think for me, the most important thing, someone had told me when I was a kid that I didn't have to do it exactly the way it was written in the book. There were times when I would play with something and I'm like, well, I can't do that, but I could do this. But no, it says I have to do it this way, and I was always kind of like, I had to do it that way. But that for me would have been better advice when I was younger. But listen, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you.
This has been great. And you've given us so many gems. But I think the things I get out of it are, one is you've got to have fun above all else. Just never lose that sense of childish fun, wonder, because that is infectious. And that I think that will get an audience more than any opening trick you do.
Absolutely.
I think you are your opening trick, right? Who you are when you walk on stage, you are that person.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I think is the real thing I get from this is you've got to go the extra mile, and you're a walking example of someone who's done that. You should do motivational. If you haven't done motivational speaking,
for a few years. No, I'm doing one in November. I've been asked by a group to do a talk.
Because you manifested this career, and that's the most impressive thing. So thank you. Thanks for coming out, my friend. And
thanks for having me.
Oh,
Steve.
it's been absolutely wonderful. I hope to see you soon in Windsor. What an amazing interview. Thank you, Eric, for opening up and actually kind of giving us real usable information that we can use, magicians around the world. And actually, even if you're not a magician, maybe just a business person, stuff that you can use for your own career. There's a couple of things that I really got from this, and that is that you've really got to go the extra mile. And marketing. And it's not just marketing a product, it's marketing yourself. Think about it. Eric had to go to his wife and convince her to agree to let him leave his gig, leave his regular job, and go out to be a professional magician. He promised her that he would eventually end up making at least $100,000 a year, which he did. And he told me, not in the first year, but in subsequent years as he built up the career. But he had to create that marketing plan. He had to create that selling of the idea to his wife. And if you can convince your wife to let you become a magician, I think you can do anything, right? So, and here's a great bit of news. The show is sponsored by Magic on the Go at magiconthego.com. What is Magic on the Go? It is a special online magic school subscriber service for someone who wants to immerse themselves in the world of magic and learn how to be cool. You want to impress people. You want to do shows. You want to just stand out from the crowd. You want to have magic at your fingertips. This is the place to go. There's a lot of courses out there, and there's a lot of courses in Magic on the Go, individual courses, but really its value is that it's a resource and it's ever growing. And I was talking to Eric about this. Eric has been a member and a supporter of Magic on the Go since we began. And as we were talking off air, as we were talking about his videos, Pack Small Plays Big, the 2 DVD set, which is hard to find nowadays, Eric said to me, would you like them for Magic on the Go? Would you like them for the members of Magic on the Go? And I was like blown away. I said, I want them for me. I just want to see them for me. Very soon after this episode airs, we're going to start uploading pieces of Eric's DVD collection on how to do magic on stage with small objects, Pack Small plays big. The whole thing is eventually going to be and going to have its own special playlist on Magic on the Go. No extra charge. It's just part of the Magic on the Go service. It's part of all the content that we provide on a monthly basis. And another thing, I was just talking to it's a friend of mine, Brian, and two magicians I know, Brian and Bentley, who are members of Magic on the Go. And they were just doing a show together. And they were laughing about the fact that 70% of the material that they're doing is based on stuff they learned from Magic on the Go. So we really are having an impact out there. And I'm super, super proud that people are paying attention to not just the material, but kind of the little details that we kind of intersperse into the talks and into the training videos and into the teaching, you know. So and the number one thing that I try to instill in every video is love. It's enthusiasm. It's a joy to teach and how much fun it can be to learn. And yeah, it can be frustrating when you're learning magic. You kind of like, you just want to throw the prop away, but put it down, come back to it another day, pick it up, pick up that deck of cards, keep trying it. And one day you'll do the move, or you'll realize that you're ready to do the routine. It'll be a glorious moment, and you'll be so happy that you never gave up. So I highly recommend that you guys check out Magic on the Go at magiconthego.com. Meanwhile, two things to remember. One, if you have a question, go to the link in the show notes, lovemagiconthego@gmail.com. Send us a question for Q&A episodes, all right? We're not going to get to everybody. We've got a lot of questions in already. Also, when you do send a question, just understand that it's got to be within certain parameters. You can ask anything you want, as long as it's not, you know, naughty. If it's a naughty or offensive question, that gets filtered out. I feel like I have to explain this now. It gets filtered out. I don't even get to see it. So it just gets filtered and blocked. So, you know, this is the world we live in, right? But if you have a decent question you want to ask, and you don't be afraid to ask it, and we will address those in Q&A episodes. Sometimes I'll even bring a friend up to answer these questions with me, because we may have two different opinions, right? So don't forget that. And finally, we still haven't added the commercials and ads back. So we're just going to work on a tip basis for right now. So if you enjoyed the episode, just like you would with the street performer, if you've enjoyed the episode, hit the link, the tip bucket link, either the QR code in the photograph, and tip the team. Everything will be appreciated. Meanwhile, I will see you next week. Meanwhile, I'll see you all next week. Be good, be magic. I'll see you on the inside.